Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Cosmic Owl Astrology. I am Louise Eddington, your Cosmic Owl, and let me take that down, and Wisdom Weaver, and I am the Cyberpunk Priestess or Witch of the Stars, according to Steve Judd, and I'm just owning it. So my new website and things are almost ready to launch, so I might have a little launch party and show you all because I'm really proud of it. But it'll just show you the direction that my work's really going in. And so, anyway, I'm here today with the week ahead forecast from October the 12th to what's the date? October the 18th, inclusive. So, Sunday, October the 12th to Saturday, October the 18th. I'm kind of caught up from 2 weekends of travel, and I'm here for the weekend. But then next week, from Wednesday through till Sunday, I am at the Organization for Professional Astrology's retreat, where I'm running an in-person peer group. Sorry if you want a space, they're all gone. So for my peer group anyway, I think there's tickets still left for the event, and there's other good tracks and things that you could do in the beautiful Park City. And then I get back on the Sunday, so that's the 19th. And then I leave again on the 24th, and I'm away for over a week with my husband, a vacation. So, I kind of just want to say, I still manage to keep up with the YouTube videos. So some of this is for Substack. So I record these forecasts, then I upload them to YouTube, then I upload them to the podcast app in Substack, and then I take the transcript and break it down for a written forecast for the week ahead. And occasionally, and they're free. All of this is free, right? Apart from ads on YouTube. And Substack might be doing ads as well. And so occasionally I might not have time to do all the pieces because I'm really busy, because I'm also creating a new website and all those things like that. So, and moving my member platform and things. Got so many irons in the fire at the moment as I reorganize my whole business, but it's going to be great. So here we have the week ahead for October the 12th to the 18th. Now, it's a big week because we have Pluto stationing direct, and we also have the last quarter moon before the new moon that is on the 21st, which is a big one. In fact, Cassie Beale and I talked a little bit about that day on our last political video, because that's the day Virginia Giuffre's book is being released. She was the Epstein accuser and survivor who eventually took her own life by suicide, and her memoir is being published posthumously. So I'll link to it, but you can also find it in the videos. So quick glimpse of the cards for the week. I find it interesting. I've got 2 6s. So 6 of blades, first of all, that's usually 6 of swords. We'll do the full reading at the end. Okay. And then I have the 6 of discs as well, which is also pentacles in some decks. So this is air, this is earth, but this is also very relevant because we've got a lot at 6 degrees. And so the last card is the Dark God, okay, which is ecstasy, which is actually one of my favorite cards. This is the devil in some tarot decks. And, as in astrology, so with tarot, there's a lot of negativity around some of the energies. And I maintain that they are how we work with them, whether it's tarot or astrology or the aspects or the transits or human design. You are not set in stone. You have a life map And if you're doing divination to see what might come up, you can get a kind of a caution if things might be challenging, but I always think they are a message for how you can respond and approach it from a more joyful, creative mindset. Okay, rather than thinking, I'm doomed. I'm a bit tired of the doomed language, to be quite honest. There's me. So before I dive into the week, we'll come back to those cards at the end and do the full reading. But I do want to ask you to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. If you've got my series book, please, please, please leave me a review on Amazon under the Kindle bit. And if you bought it from Amazon, you can review anywhere. But if you bought it elsewhere, do it under the Kindle bit. And I think that's it for now. Yeah, let's dive in to the week ahead. So here we are, October the 12th starts the week. As usual, I'm going to have a little check-in where we're at. So as you can see, Neptune is now 15 minutes from dipping back into the sign of Pisces for a short while, where it will stay at 29 degrees before moving back into Aries and before Saturn and Neptune meet at 0 Aries early next year. And so Neptune is at 0 Aries. Uranus has moved back to 0 Gemini again, as Uranus starts to move back to retrograde back into Taurus to finish what it started there too. So we've got two of those at the 0 degree, the Alpha, the Omega, not quite ready to move back yet, but really on the way. This week as well, we have Pluto stationing direct, which is going to be huge. So we'll look in detail at that. And we start the week here with the moon at 28 Gemini, about to move into Cancer. And talking of out of bounds planets, let me tell you, the moon is way out of bounds here. I've mentioned it on a couple of videos because, sometimes you can't mention everything. We are still this year at lunar maximum, which means the moon goes maximum out of bounds every month. And this is adding to the sense of chaos and wildcard energy out in the world, and also about a lot of emotional ups and downs. But again, it's how you respond to these things. If you're doing the work to heal from the inside out and to learn to balance in your core and your center, you will cope with this a lot better. But anyway, we start the week with the moon way out of bounds, and Pluto is still out of bounds. On the video I did with Dawn Hild about the 6 degree Aquarius and the Lovers card, I give the dates from Rosie Finn's fabulous book, Persephone's Revolution, for when Pluto will be out of bounds till 2033. So it's only for a short time each year, and it's a good thing. But it is the finishing of this chaos as we move out of this terrible period that we are in. And I know it doesn't feel like we're moving out of it, but I promise you, we are starting to. Let me see what else is out of bounds. Hygeia is actually out of bounds too. Interesting note, teaching note for people who, are learning astrology. If you're interested in looking at out of bounds planets, they are usually, and the moon, they are usually out of bounds in the sign of Cancer and Capricorn, because they are the furthest north and south signs, and often dip into Aquarius, Sagittarius, Gemini, and Leo. So, that's always those areas of the chart where the planets are out of bounds at the moment. We're in this constant spiraling kind of energy over a long time. Okay, so I think that's all I want to point out to start the week. you can see that Chiron has moved past Eris and is going to go backwards and then station direct and meet Eris again. But they're still at the same degree at the start of the week, and the nodes have moved off the 18-degree mark where they sat during the eclipses. And we've just had Venus opposing Saturn at 26 degrees, but Venus is now at 27 degrees square the galactic center, which that opposition really was square the galactic center. New information is coming in, new knowledge, new higher knowledge if we are listening. All right, so, okay, let's dive in. So the only aspects on the 12th are that the moon will move into the sign of Cancer. Then, of course, as I've said before, as it changes the sign, it will run the gamut of the aspects with a square to Neptune and a quincunx actually to Pluto, semi-sextile to Uranus, but also a quincunx to sorry, not to Hecate, to Haumea. So that's actually kind of making, with Pluto square Haumea, this is actually making a Thor's hammer pointing at the moon when it goes there. Again, this is adding to this heightened energy. We just are in this kind of end times moment where there's many major configurations and aspects, and these slow moving planets are all changing signs, and so on and so forth. I've talked about many of the other big aspects too. All right, moving on. So the other aspects for that day, the moon. Oh no, sorry, I kind of lied. It's not actually a Thor's hammer, but the moon is activated by all those, or the moon activates all those outer planets. And the moon after that will conjunct Hygeia, which is preventative health and hygiene, the seer. Then the moon will square Ceres, our needs met and unmet, and then the moon will oppose Pholus, which has been showing us kind of this inventory of cause and effect of, what was kind of the root cause of this and how is it now the lid's come off, how are we kind of seeing it in our own lives and elsewhere. And then the moon will finish on the 12th with a water trine to Mercury. Mercury in Scorpio is like this detective investigating, digging deep into the shadows. And I just saw something pop up. It was only on Reddit, so I don't know how reliable it is. Something about a bombshell regarding Epstein coming. So we'll see. Anyway, Sun. The only other major aspects for the day is that the Sun, the Libra Sun, balance seeking, justice seeking Sun, is in a quincunx to Nessus. Aspect of adjustment to the buck stops here that has been revealing abuses of power in all areas of our lives. And right after that, Mercury here will sextile that Pholus, the cause and effect centaur. And these centaurs really seem to be working together lately to help us to kind of see what's going on, but then also to do something about it and bring the healing in. And I forgot one. Venus over here as well will also sextile Hecate. And I always think Venus and Hecate work together really well because Hecate is the crossroads goddess who helped Demeter find Persephone in the underworld when she had gone into the underworld to be queen of the dead. I don't buy the whole rape of Persephone story anymore because that was written from a very different paradigm. But anyway, this supportive sextile with Venus in Virgo is about molding and sculpting this new future at this crossroads we're in. Okay, on to the 13th. So the 13th starts with the moon still in Cancer and the moon moves through quite a few aspects. The primarily biggest ones are a trine to Mars, and now, that's kind of pushing to purge and cleanse more, but pushing to reveal more things as well. And then what else? I'm not going to go through the quincunxes for the moon. The moon will then trine Nessus. So, that's kind of a water grand trine building again. Kind of really emotional, but also very cleansing and revealing. Like if you think about the energy of water, how it erodes things and uncovers what's beneath, right? Big, big, big. On to the next day, later on the 13th, I will actually get to this exact time. Bear with me. So later in the afternoon, Eastern time, 2:12 p.m., October the 13th. By the way, I love that it's a 13 because that's the number of the goddess. So the moon over here at 20 degrees Cancer, about to be conjunct Jupiter, very close. So this is expansive energy, is how we have the last quarter moon. And then we're going to go to a really big Libra new moon. I will do a whole separate video on that, of course, but that's on October the 21st. So now we're about a week away from the new moon. We're in the releasing phase. We're in the crisis of consciousness phase, crossroads in our consciousness. It's big. The moon's in its own sign with Jupiter, which expands everything. This is about, we each need to kind of look at what we need to release individually so everything can shift in the collective as we move into this new age. But the last quarter moon is a crossroads. We just had the full moon that was, on the 6th. That was at 14 Aries. That was the first lunation after the eclipses. So we're still unpacking the eclipse energy in many, many ways. And I don't know about you, but it's been wild. As we have the last quarter moon, Venus moves to the last degree of Virgo and that's kind of that tense liminal degree, more change coming. So this day is worth spending time on, actually, because then right after that, so that was 2:12 p.m. Eastern. You can adjust time zones for where you are. At 5:18 p.m., Venus moves into her home sign of Libra and hits a world point, and also hits where the supergalactic center is. These zero cardinal points of signs are always really important. And look, she immediately opposes Neptune. So this is more releasing. This is more releasing kind of who we thought we were, and kind of this feeling that we are, whilst we can only kind of heal ourselves or grow ourselves or come into our own center because we are beings, consciousness that is aware of only itself, really, quantum physics. But this is about, realizing this connection between the me and the we in all ways. So the me and all other people, all nature, all of the cosmos. This really is, a turning point again. Okay. Because Neptune is very close to the current Venus star point as well. So a lot of this began back in March, as I've mentioned many times. And then we have Pluto. At 10:52 p.m. Eastern on the 13th, Pluto stations direct. Now, I find Pluto's outer planets go retrograde for long periods every year. So I don't really look at the whole, this is, the retrograde period in the way we might quicker ones, like the Venus personal planets, Mercury, Mars, and Ceres, I'm going to say. But the times around the station of these slower moving planets are very potent. So we've been in this for quite a few days already. It's usually about 5, 6 days before I find Pluto stations much more kind of transformative, which is one of the key words for Pluto. But I also find them the most kind of turgid and relentless. It's often when the shadow is revealed and starts to come to light, especially during the direct station. Okay. So, I often find, especially if you have planets or angles or major placements of any kind close to 1 degree Aquarius, but then also 1 degree of fixed signs as well, Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. But also, really, if this is aspecting any major points in your chart, you're going to feel this Pluto station. But it's often a very inner kind of dig. It's kind of digging stuff out of you, okay? And that can come to you by an outer event, but it's how you lean in and deal with it. So this one feels quite stormy, okay? I want to read you the Sabian symbol first for this Pluto station is an unexpected thunderstorm. And James Burgess says that all life is ephemeral. Even though we want to cement our lives into secure structures, nature always wins in the end. Submission, and so he says this is about submission to unforeseen and uncontrollable forces, which is really what Pluto does. These forces, it is kind of the force. It's not just nature, it's the cosmos. It's these forces are bringing this major transformation and change collectively. And for you, it's how you respond to it individually. So James Burgess writes, nature, I'm going to say the cosmos, is a constant existential challenge to the works of people. Fires, floods, winds tear down our strongest buildings in moments, and time itself erodes everything eventually. By this fact, we are reminded not only of how small and insignificant we are, and how magnificent is any creation that stands against nature for a while, yet also we remember the need to develop inwardly the strength and resilience, I'm going to say, to cope with it all. I've talked a lot about that, about standing in the eye of the storm, coming to your center, balancing your vagus nerve, all of these things. This is all what it's about. I even talked about the Aries energy as having, because Mars and Aries is associated with the iron. I talked about imagining a rod of iron kind of, within you so that you withstand all this stormy kind of weather. So I'm also going to read the John Sandbacher's symbols for this degree. So again, we always go up, so to Aquarius 2. And he said his Omega symbol is another manifesting sensitive degree. He said an alchemist trying to capture a spirit in a forest, which I think is kind of wild because Pluto, one of my favorite books for a Pluto transit is literally called Inner Gold by Robert A. Johnson, the Jungian psychologist that's no longer with us. Pluto, to my mind, both clears out the excrement or whatever, the sewers, and reveals the shadow or what needs to be released. But Pluto always digs in so you can find your inner gold. And what do alchemists always try to do? Make gold, right? You are an alchemist of you, really. Okay. But you're also trying to capture the spirit in the forest. You're trying to connect your inner alchemy with all that is. Okay. So he says this degree is always looking for help in accomplishing whatever project in which it is currently involved and seeks especially to enlist the support of natural forces. It understands that those forces are at work everywhere, including in each and every one of us, And so it calls out to the pure and natural energies of its fellow humans to work with them in the process of evolutionary change. And it's a 1 degree, so it's new beginnings. So the Chandra symbol for this is a woman strolling in a garden. She is unaware that she is being watched by elves. The power of nature is all around us and within us, and even though we may not experience it directly, we have the potential of tuning into it psychically and deriving immense knowledge and support from it. This degree is aware of the elusive nature of the forces that come together to create our world. It is seeking to contact those forces, but knows instinctively that to do so will take patience and will require a gentle melding with those energies. By letting go of desires and agendas, one can find the whole world ready and waiting to assist one's spiritual growth. Okay, I want you to soak those words in. If you want to go and read them again, just Google Chandra, so 2 Aquarius Chandra symbol, Sandbach, Sandbach, and they're on his website. And he finishes with the Omega symbol shows the more aggressive side of the degree. I would say more relentless side of the degree, to be quite honest, because Pluto is relentless. And then he says, but alludes to the truth that even when this attempt to capture knowledge is overt, it still requires inspiration and openness to the possibilities of the moment. This is what I keep trying to tell you guys. It's how you face this and how you change your mindset and change your words to a more co-creative sense of possibility of what's to come. Otherwise, maybe we are doomed if people keep saying we're doomed. I don't think we are, but anyway. We're going to move on. October the 14th, that's the biggest day, actually. October the 13th, Monday. On to October the 14th, the moon has moved into Leo. It actually moves in early morning, so let me get back. Let me actually just get when the moon ingresses into Leo, because this is late in the day. So 6:47 a.m. Eastern, the moon leaves Cancer. It's still out of bounds. Yep. But it's starting to dip back towards the ecliptic. So it's starting to head back inbounds. Pluto is still at 2332 south declination, which is the most out of bounds of the ecliptic that Pluto will get at the moment. But we do start this week with this kind of crazy out of bounds energy and Pluto stationing direct and a last quarter moon. So it's kind of, bit of an intense beginning to the week. But at October the 14th, at 6:47 a.m., the moon enters Leo. The sun's home sign. Leo is more about operating from joy, but it's also kind of about ruling and kings and things like that. And it can be a little bit arrogant occasionally, but I always find the moon in Leo, people with the moon in Leo are very sensitive to not being loved. It's not about criticism, that's a different thing, but it's like not giving me the attention. So with the moon in Leo, you might be coming and going, love me, love me, love me. But what's important is that the more you love yourself, going to your core, which is the sun, and the moon is your emotions, the more you turn that to yourself, the more others love you. Okay. Then I did say when I pulled the cards that it was interesting I pulled 2 sixes because Mercury, Pallas Athena just stationed direct at 6 Aquarius. Again, that whole video on the 6 Aquarius, it's a huge degree, and is still sat at 6 Aquarius. We also have Ceres at 6 Aries, and we have a couple of other things that we'll come to in a minute coming up. But so on the 14th, Ceres retrograde and Aquarius, they're now moving towards each other. I'm not sure if they actually will meet, actually. Probably not, but we can look at that later. This is the mother number, by the way. You know, this is the great mother, which Ceres is. She is kind of the energy of the 6 in numerology. And Pallas Athena station turn around in the sign of hopes, wishes, long-term plans for the future, also the sign of humanitarianism, also the sign of science and technology and invention and strategy and planning in that way. These two aspect of opportunity in fire and air going, take a really good look at your plans and your hopes and wishes for the future. And I am yet again going to recommend the book Mind Magic by J.R. Doty, D-O-T-Y. It's in my Amazon store, which is always in the description. I do earn a few cents if you buy it from there, but it's literally a few cents. Kind of helps my book buying habit a little bit if you do, but no pressure to do that. Interestingly, he just died. Doty, he left us a real gift with this book. It's the best book on manifestation, which is about really creating the life you want, not just about buying big houses and things. So anyway, that's a lovely aspect of opportunity, and it's helping us to create the collective future. Later on that day, 10:09 a.m., Venus over here now, still at 0 Libra, will make an air trine to Uranus and then to Pluto, and still opposing Neptune. That's that air grand trine again, back in play. We had the Sun making it, we had Mercury making it, we had actually Mars making it the same thing a while back. Venus now in her home sign is saying, come on, let's co-create justice, equity, balance, harmony, and how can we do that with all these big change-making planets? Let's talk about ideas and let's talk to each other. That's what that feels like it's saying. Then at 12:36 p.m., still at 6 degrees, I knew there was something else, Hygeia. Ceres squares off to Hygeia in the sign of Cancer. This is more about preventative health in all kinds of ways, mind, body, spirit, and taking action to create something better. Last aspect of the day is that trine to Pluto from Venus, but we talked about that in the collective anyway. So Wednesday, October the 15th, there's really only a couple of aspects, but I will point out we've still got the moon in Leo. The moon will square Mercury today, will trine Vesta, will square Mars. So there is, it's a highly active moon in Leo saying time to take action now and speak up. Okay, but we start the day with Venus in Libra. It's moved to the 1 degree, will make that air grand trine to Sedna, which is kind of spiritual destiny in this big crisis crossroads moment we're in as well. And so then again, that's about talking about the ideas again. The last aspect I will mention for October the 15th is that Hecate, probably my favorite asteroid. I used to do these written asteroid reports. I don't anymore, don't ask me. And Hecate is that crossroads goddess holding the torch at the crossroads. Mind, body, spirit though as well. It's not just literal crossroads. This is the crossroads between integrating, which bit do you need to integrate kind of thing. And she's saying, come to your center. Anyway, Hecate will move into Sagittarius, the sign of the future, the sign of truth, the sign of higher knowledge. She will join Juno and Vesta finally in Sagittarius, saying, come on, let's shoot our arrows to the future. Let's start saying and believing that we can be the change we want to see in the world. Alrighty, on to Thursday. There's a lot less aspects as the week goes on and the moon wanes. You can see by now. In fact, as we enter Thursday, probably a little bit earlier in the morning, the moon sextiles the sun and makes its last Ptolemaic aspect of opportunity before it enters the waning and then the balsamic phase. This is the heading into that shedding and then replanting the seeds, finishing off, letting go, shedding, releasing, going into the dark, going within, and planting seeds for the next cycle. So that actually was at 1:06 a.m. the moon sextile the sun. Okay, but the next big aspect is that Hecate, just in Sagittarius, will make a fire unbroken flow aspect to Neptune in Aries. Now, Neptune is about faith, and Sagittarius is about belief, really, or more about higher experience of divine. You know, just as a collective and more generally, apart from certain groups, types, trying to cling on to this certainty of organized religion. I actually saw somebody else who I wasn't really friends with, but we were on Facebook. We're not anymore. She unfriended me because I told her she didn't need an intercessory. But anyway, she's been saved, you know, by some cult guru out in California, and she's been preaching all over her page, and I didn't want to see it. But anyway, you do not need an intercessory anymore. That doesn't mean you can't have a spiritual relationship with the energy of Jesus, the Christ. He is actually, the Christ energy is my gatekeeper in shamanic terms. He's kind of my protector. In shamanic training, you identify a gatekeeper that you call on when you need some kind of spiritual psychic kind of protection. It's like, you know, it's kind of like saying save me Jesus, only without it being it's just kind of pulling this energetic flow around you. Okay, so not literally going to save you, but anyway, I'm not very, yeah, you get the idea. The moon then at 2:05 p.m. will enter Virgo for a couple of days. Again, will aspect all the planets and placements at the beginning degrees of signs. Just activating over and over this major change we're going through. And I think that's it for the 16th. We'll move on to the 17th, and then we've just got the cards, and we'll be done. So on the 17th, very early, the sun at 24 Libra now squares off to Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is really slowing down. You can see, I think, the pop-up, it says slow, because Jupiter is going retrograde soon. So that makes this square more potent. Now, this would have been a little while back. The Sun and Jupiter started there. In fact, let's take you back there. When did this start? Because then, well, I'll talk about it in a minute. So the Sun was conjunct Jupiter on June the 24th, right after the summer solstice, right? And you can see that was at 3 Cancer. And now the Sun has moved all the way around into Libra and is square Jupiter at 24 Cancer. And I will come back to that in a minute. But it's very potent because Jupiter is stationing retrograde on November the 11th. Still a month out, but when a planet starts to slow down, the energy gets more intense, right? So going back to that square, October the 17th, 24 degrees, and what's that? 2 plus 4 is 6, and it's 6 minutes. The Great Mother energy is coming in wildly in many ways. And this is actually the Gemini card in the tarot. You can read all about that if you go and watch that video that Dawn and I did. But this is an opening square. So we're in the closing of the lunar cycle. The moon is heading into the dark of the cycle to begin a new cycle with the new moon. This one is an opening cycle that began on June the 24th. And it's going to be a really strong one because of Jupiter going retrograde too. So I'll perhaps do a whole thing about that. But this is in cardinal signs. And with Jupiter slowing down, this is saying time to take action. But then Jupiter goes, hang on a minute, we might need to kind of just go over a few things here and there. Ooh, that was a weird notification. Just bear with me. Just going to check it. Oh, it's nothing. Good. I just made sure it was nothing important because I've had a lot of wonky things happening lately. Then on October the 17th at 4:52 p.m, Venus, she's moving really fast, right? You know, she's trotting through the signs. She spends very little time in each sign right now. So she's just moved into Libra and she's already at 4 degrees. And she will sextile Juno over here, who I sometimes call the flower of Venus. They're both to do with relationships to all things, but this is more our sacred contracts with each other. Okay, whereas this is more kind of our earthly relationships. And that's an aspect of opportunity to co-create as well and to start building for the future. Told you we're heading out of it even more. And then later on October the 17th, the sun will get to 24 degrees, as you can see, will oppose Chiron and then oppose Eris. And this is taking a good hard look at what our healing role is from the inside out and how we need to shake things up further still. Because, you know, some of us are getting the message loud and clear, but we've still got work to do. Some are not yet getting the message. We're kind of like, you know, the 5th graders to the 3rd graders that, you know, if we want to see the change in the world that we really want to see, we have to stop relying on Big Daddy to save us or somebody else to save us. We have to be the one taking aligned action in whatever way that means for you. But I do also think that this sun opposing Chiron Eris just before the new moon, just before this book is released, Virginia Gouffre's, and it impacts all the players' charts. I think this, you know, maybe there'll be some leaked passages, or maybe we'll be just feeling the pull to start speaking about it, or maybe, you know, Congress will be back and will be pushing for papers to be released. Something, I think, justice-wise might be coming. Okay. Then Uranus over here, still at 0. Gemini all week will oppose or be opposed by Hecate, because Hecate is the fastest moving one. That's at this crossroads. What more radical change do we need to choose? Or what radical change is coming anyway, whether we like it or not, and how do we adapt to it as well? But it's also the energy of aha moments about what needs to change. Then finally, Mars on October the 17th. It's been a bit quiet this week, but Mars in its own sign of Scorpio traditionally will make an unbroken flow water trine aspect to Character. Sorry, no, we'll square. Sorry about that, we'll square. A 10th square, but it's a closing square to this base holder, Spinner of Grace, who is helping us to write the new story that will help us to weave the new story that we're moving into. Finally, on to October the 18th. The first thing I will note is that the moon's still in Virgo, finishes the week in Virgo, and is conjunct the South Node again. If you remember the eclipses, the moon, we had the new moon at 29 Virgo, the last one. So the moon had crossed the eclipse again before that new moon. Now the moon crosses that South Node again, saying, okay, what's shaking out since all these eclipses? What perfectionism, what critic, so in a meanie voice do you need to purge, do you need to release? what kind of belief that you don't never can do enough do you need to release? It's an ongoing process while the nodes are in these signs, but it's particularly potent again because we just had the eclipses. So then the sun will exactly oppose Eris. I talked about that already. And as if to join in the party, Mars over here will actually trine the north node and sextile the south node. So supportive aspects, flowing aspects, but also got that purging, cleansing quality, especially as we're now really in the dark of the moon. There's less than 30 degrees between the moon and the sun, and we are just 3 days away from the new moon. Okay, so purge, 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 cleanse, cleanse, cleanse again. And so then we have Venus. Where is she? Already at 5 degrees. Look, and Ceres. Actually, what degree do they? They actually oppose each other at 6, right before Venus moves to 5 degrees. Venus and Ceres, the Great Mother herself, oppose each other at 6 degrees, that Great Mother number. Remember, we've had that highlighted by other aspects, but this one in Libra and Aries, the me, the we, this is kind of like, I always see like the whole myth of Maiden Mother Crone as mind, body, spirit as well. You know, that it's the three, it's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, or let's say Mother, Child, and Holy Ghost, or Parent, Child, and Holy Ghost, to be really fair. But anyway, this is about saying, come into center, find your intimacy, and heal from the inside out. It's the only way. And then last aspect, at 10, just after 10 p.m. at night, Mercury will follow Mars and square off to Carriclo, and those two are going to meet early next week. And this is really potent as well, especially because that book's about to come out. Secrets are going to be revealed that will help us to write the new story of the new paradigm we want to see. Might not be easy, but watch what's revealed. Okay, but also this is also being revealed from within you, right? Because it's as without, so within. So, if secrets are being revealed out there, you're going to probably find little secret parts of yourself as well. So, especially if you're aspected by the energies. Okay, onto the cards. So, first card I pulled is the Six of Blades in the Red Threads Tarot, which is air sign, which is Six of Swords in other decks. And this is the betrayal. This is I am deception. And I did pull it upright. But I'm going to say, looking at the aspects and what I've said, I think we may be finding out about more betrayals and more deceptions and more of all those things. But it's also got an element. So let me read the book first of all. Betrayal is not a nice thing to be a part of. Here lies deception, illusion, and denial. Is the air around you clouded with intrigue and causing you mental unrest? Has someone lied to you, or have you lied to yourself, causing you upset, anxiety, and pain? Are you worried that someone or something has been offering you false information? You may need to confront what is being what you are seeing. Okay. It's also possible that you may need to confront yourself about acts of self-deception that arise from your unconscious self. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will go to the end. In the book, she says, keep your mind clear. Don't be economical with the truth. Honest inventory, right? Be honest, be courageous, face reality even when it hurts, and always trust your true self to guide you to a place of integrity, wholeness, and truth. Okay, so 6 of discs. So she's told you 2 sixes, so all those 6 degree things. Again, It's well, it's one of the numbers in Tesla's code. He said the 369 code, but they're all feminine numbers because they're all curvy. Okay, and the 6 actually kind of makes a spiral, which is a bit like the Venus Fibonacci sequence, and Venus and Ceres are very connected. Anyway, the 6 of discs is about giving and receiving, and this is I am thankful. So I'm just going to read a couple of quotes. I have found that among its other benefits, giving liberates the soul of the giver, and that's Maya Angelou. So it says, make time to give to Mother Nature, for her gifts are always generously given. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to say. So after that kind of, this is how you cope with what's being revealed. And then we have the devil or the dark god. And this, I'm going to quote Robert A. Johnson again. Great books he wrote, very small books on kind of Jungian psychology and the archetypes, but he writes about them in such a beautiful way. He has a book called Ecstasy, and this is what this is. I am ecstasy. This is the dance of Dionysus. And so let me read what it says about the soul journey for this. Dionysus represents a raw, spontaneous, harmonious nature. This is what you're being asked to become. One of my clients said she feels like she was being ripped apart inside, and I said, you're healing from the inside out. She says, I've never been more vulnerable. And I'm like, yeah, that's what this ecstasy is about. It's about connecting with the glorious energy of being alive, if you choose, of literally kind of feeling the ecstasy of living, of being a human on this earth, in this suit. It's the only way we can bring changes for people to accept this. Anyway, so Dionysus represents a raw, spontaneous, harmonious nature. Dionysus is also gentle, tender, and comforting. This androgynous lover holds no shame or boundary towards sexuality or sensuality or whatever you want to call it. Dionysus, or even just dancing wildly, this is not just about sex, by the way. His book is amazing, but it's about that too. Dionysus exhibits an earthy darkness for all to see, which could make you fearful if you don't want to be reminded of parts of yourself that you might be ignoring. This god illuminates shadows but allows you to project them if you are not ready to seek your unconscious self. For Dionysus won't ever give up on you and will continue to reach out and encourage you to acknowledge your shadow self, which has always been seen as a bad thing too, but shadow is strength too. Anyway, and experience your life to the full in ecstasy and liberation. This god asks when you last felt totally alive and ecstatic. Dionysus will talk to you of divine joy, which cannot be found through wealth, sex, drugs, or other falsehoods alone. He knows that such dependencies can never be fully satisfied and will only anesthetize, ignore, and bury the self. He will encourage you to remove your inhibitions and release your repressions. Dionysus emanates the loosening, the unraveling of life, and encourages you to find the liberation and freedom you deserve. And Anjali's Arian, in her book that usually goes with the Thoth Tarot, she said this is about laughing at what bedevils you. So it's finding joy in all of it, right? Mwah. I love you. Don't forget to subscribe, all the things. Leave me a review on Amazon for my book, and see you next time.